the collector's prize. The Valerian Empire stretched across 47 star systems, each world a jewel in the crown of Emperor Thexus the Magnificent. But tonight, in the grand menagerie halls of the Imperial Palace on Valoria Prime, the Emperor's attention fixed on something far more precious than conquered planets. "You wanted Earth? Show me the humans again," Thexus commanded, his crystalline fingers drumming against the viewing console. His advisor, a towering Kralix named Vorn, manipulated the holographic display with practiced efficiency. Images materialized before them, humans engaged in their mundane activities. A woman laughing with children. A man repairing ancient machinery. Groups gathering around flickering screens, their faces illuminated by artificial light. "Fascinating," Thexus whispered. "They possess no natural armor, no venomous defenses, no telepathic abilities. Yet they thrive." Vorn's mandibles clicked in what passed for agreement among his species. The intelligence reports confirmed they're confined to a single planet, Majesty. They've barely achieved orbital flight. Their weapons are primitive, chemical propellants and nuclear fission. "Perfect," Thexus said, his expression brightening. "They'll make an excellent addition to the collection." The Imperial Menagerie was Thexus's pride, a living museum containing specimens from every sentient species in the Empire. The Silurians with their photosynthetic skin. The gaseous Ithrani confined to pressure chambers. The telepathic Mindari whose thoughts painted colors in the air. Each species occupied elaborate habitats designed to replicate their homeworlds, where citizens of the Empire could observe them, study them, marvel at the diversity of life the Emperor had gathered. But humans would be different. Humans would be special. "Dispatch the collection fleet," Thexus ordered. "I want a breeding pair, no 3 pairs. Healthy specimens representing their genetic diversity. And Vorn, ensure they're taken without incident. I want them intact, unharmed, and utterly unaware of their true value." "As you command, Majesty." 3 months later, the collection fleet arrived at Earth's solar system, their vessels sliding through space like sharks through dark water. They'd perfected this operation across countless worlds, silent, swift, surgical. The targets had been selected through months of observation. 6 humans from different continents, different cultures, each chosen for their robust health and genetic uniqueness. The abductions occurred simultaneously, each human plucked from their lives in the span of a single night. Among them was Cale Morrison, a construction worker from North America who'd been camping alone in the mountains. Lyra Chin, a marine biologist from Asia researching deep-sea creatures. Dax Okonkwo, a musician from Africa returning home from a late-night performance. Mira Volkov, a pilot from Europe conducting routine flight training. Rajesh Kapoor, a chef from South Asia closing his restaurant. And Zara al-Rashid, a teacher from the Middle East walking home under the stars. When they awoke, they found themselves in what appeared to be a perfect replica of a human habitat, a small village square surrounded by buildings that seemed pulled from various Earth cultures. The sky above was impossibly clear, showing stars none of them recognized. "Where are we?" Mira demanded, her pilot's training keeping her voice steady despite the fear tightening her chest. "Look at the barrier," Cale said, pointing upward. Above them, barely visible, a shimmering energy field formed a dome over their environment. Beyond it, massive shapes moved, shadows too large to be human. "We're in a zoo," Lyra said quietly, her scientific mind already cataloging the details. "We're specimens." The first visitors arrived that afternoon, towering aliens with too many limbs, floating beings of pure light, creatures whose forms defied human comprehension. They pressed against the invisible barrier, their eyes, or whatever sensory organs they possessed, studying the humans with undisguised curiosity. A voice boomed through the habitat, speaking perfect English through translation technology. "Behold, citizens of the Valerian Empire. The newest addition to the Imperial Menagerie, humans from the planet designated Earth 437. Observe their bipedal locomotion, their primitive communication methods, their fascinating social structures." Rajesh threw a rock at the barrier. It bounced back harmlessly, and the aliens beyond chittered in what might have been laughter. "This isn't real," Zara said, shaking her head. "This can't be real." But it was real. And as the days turned to weeks, the 6 humans began to understand the true scope of their situation. They were prisoners, yes, but they were also treasures. Rare specimens collected from a backwater world by an empire that viewed them as curiosities. What the Valorians didn't understand, what Emperor Thexus couldn't have anticipated, was that humans possessed something no other species in their menagerie had ever demonstrated. They possessed the will to resist, the ingenuity to adapt, and the audacity to believe that even in a cage they could find freedom. The human condition. The habitat was impressive, Kale had to admit. Whoever designed it had studied human environments extensively. There were buildings with functional doors and windows, streets paved with something resembling concrete, even a small park with trees that looked almost like Earth species. Almost, but not quite. The sky cycled through day and night on a 24-hour schedule, though the stars never changed their alien configurations. "We need to organize," Mira said during their third morning in captivity. She'd gathered the others in what they designated as the central meeting area, a plaza with benches surrounding a fountain that produced clean, drinkable water. "We can't just react. We need information, we need structure, and we need a plan." "A plan for what?" Dax asked, his fingers unconsciously tapping rhythms on his knee. "We're in a cage light years from Earth, surrounded by aliens who see us as entertainment. What exactly are we supposed to plan?" "Escape," Lyra said simply. She'd spent the previous day systematically exploring every centimeter of the habitat, her scientific methodology bringing order to their chaos. "Or at least understanding our situation well enough to improve it." Rajesh nodded. "She's right. I've been watching the visitors. They come in waves, what I'm guessing are tour groups. Morning, midday, and evening. The barrier dims slightly between visitor periods, probably for maintenance or observation." "You think we can break through during those times?" Zara asked. "No," Lyra interjected. "I've tested the barrier. It's some kind of energy field that responds to kinetic force by redistributing the energy across its entire surface. Hitting it harder just makes it stronger. We'd need to understand the technology before we could exploit it." Kale stood pacing. "Then we need to make them give us that understanding. We need to make ourselves more valuable as partners than as zoo animals." The others stared at him. "Think about it," he continued. "They brought us here because we're interesting, right? Because we're different from the other species they've collected. So let's show them exactly how different we are." Over the following weeks, the humans implemented what they came to call the protocol. Each of them brought unique skills and they leveraged every advantage. Mira used her knowledge of systems and logistics to map the patterns of their captivity, visitor schedules, food delivery times, maintenance periods. She created charts using materials from the habitat, tracking every variable she could observe. Lyra applied her scientific expertise to studying everything in their environment, from the artificial trees to the composition of the barrier itself. She conducted experiments, formed hypotheses, and slowly built a database of knowledge about Valerian technology. Dax became their communicator. He stood near the barrier during visitor hours, playing music he created from materials in the habitat, drawing crowds. He learned to read the reactions of different species, understanding that communication transcended language when art was involved. Rajesh took charge of their nutrition and health, experimenting with the food provided to ensure it was safe and maximizing their physical condition. He also observed which visitors seemed most fascinated by human cuisine preparation, turning cooking into performance art. Zara focused on education, both of herself and, potentially, their captors. She created visual displays showing Earth's geography, human history, and cultural diversity. She wanted the aliens to see humans not as primitive specimens but as beings with rich civilizations and complex thoughts. Kale coordinated everything, his construction background giving him an eye for structure and engineering. He studied the habitat itself, understanding how it was built, identifying potential weaknesses or opportunities. Their efforts didn't go unnoticed. Emperor Thexus visited the human habitat personally during their 4th week of captivity. Unlike the casual visitors, his arrival was announced by a procession of guards and advisors. The humans gathered near the barrier as he approached, his crystalline form refracting light into rainbow patterns. "Remarkable," Thexus said, his voice translated into English through hidden speakers. "My collectors assured me you were simply another primitive species, yet you've transformed this habitat into something unexpected." "We're not primitives," Mira said, stepping forward. "We're humans. We're engineers, scientists, artists, teachers. We build civilizations, explore our world, create beauty and meaning. You've caged thinking beings who deserve dignity and freedom." Thexus's expression was unreadable. Alien anatomy made human emotional interpretation impossible. But something in his posture changed, a slight tilt of his head that suggested genuine interest. "Fascinating," he murmured. "Tell me, human, what would you do if I released you? Return to your single planet and continue your limited existence." "We'd return home," Kale said. "And we'd remember that somewhere out here, there's an empire that treats intelligent life as collectibles. We'd prepare. We'd learn. We'd ensure that when humanity reaches the stars, we do so as equals, not as exhibits. For a long moment, silence hung between them. Then Thexus laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a storm. You have spirit. I appreciate that. Very well, I shall propose something unprecedented. Prove to me that humans deserve more than this habitat. Show me that your species offers value beyond curiosity. You have 1 lunar cycle, 30 days by your measurement. Impress me and I'll consider your request for reclassification. He departed without explaining what reclassification meant, leaving the 6 humans to contemplate their narrow window of opportunity. 30 days, Zara said softly, to prove the worth of the entire human race. Then we'd better make them count, Lyra replied. The demonstration. The humans spent the first week of their 30-day deadline in intense planning sessions. They knew they had one chance to convince Emperor Thexus that humanity deserved more than life in a gilded cage, and they couldn't afford to waste it. We need to show them what makes humans unique, Mira said, spreading out the charts she'd created on the ground. Every species in this menagerie probably has some special trait. The Silurians photosynthesized, the Mindari are telepathic. What do we have that they don't? Adaptability, Kale suggested. We've survived ice ages, plagues, wars. We thrive in deserts, mountains, underwater, anywhere. Creativity, Dax added. Not just art, but creative problem solving. We take limited resources and find innovative uses for them. Lyra nodded thoughtfully. And cooperation. Most intelligent species seem to have evolved with specific roles or castes. Humans are generalists who work together across different skill sets. So we demonstrate all 3, Zara concluded. We show them that humans can adapt to any environment, solve problems creatively, and work together to achieve what seems impossible. They started with infrastructure. Using only the materials provided in their habitat, the humans began to build. Kale directed the construction of a sophisticated irrigation system that redirected water from the fountain throughout the habitat. Rajesh established a proper food preparation area with storage, cooling, and cooking capabilities using thermal principles and available materials. But that was just the beginning. Lyra discovered that the artificial trees in their habitat responded to certain stimuli. By carefully pruning and training them, she created a living structure, a canopy that provided shade, privacy, and even a second level of usable space. The trees grew rapidly under her care, transforming the habitat's appearance within days. Dax meanwhile created instruments from scavenged materials. Wood from pruned branches became a percussion set. Metal components from decorative elements were fashioned into string instruments. He composed music that blended Earth traditions with new sounds, creating something entirely original. As they worked, the visitors increased. Word had apparently spread throughout the Valerian Empire that the humans were doing something unusual. The barriers around their habitat were constantly lined with alien spectators, their various sensory organs fixed on the industrious humans. On the 10th day, Vorn appeared at the barrier alone. The Emperor is intrigued, the Kralix advisor said, his translated voice crackling through the speakers. But he requires more than infrastructure improvements. He wants to understand what makes your species valuable to the Empire beyond curiosity. Give us access to information, Mira responded immediately. Let us learn about the challenges facing the Valerian Empire. We'll show you how humans approach problem solving. Vorn's mandibles clicked uncertainly. That's unprecedented. So is everything about this situation, Kale countered. You want to see what humans can do? Give us a real challenge. After a long pause, Vorn returned with a data tablet that could interface with the barrier. Information flowed into the habitat, technical readouts, engineering problems, resource allocation challenges that the Empire faced across its 47 systems. The humans absorbed it all voraciously. Look at this, Lyra said, pointing to a resource distribution problem on a mineral-rich but environmentally hostile planet. They're trying to solve it with brute force, bigger machines, more aggressive extraction. What if they worked with the environment instead? Zara suggested. She began sketching out alternative approaches, incorporating principles of sustainable development that Earth had learned through centuries of trial and error. The humans worked around the clock, applying Earthborn knowledge to alien problems. They proposed solutions for agricultural challenges on worlds with irregular day cycles. They designed communication networks that accounted for species with vastly different sensory capabilities. They developed conflict resolution frameworks for managing trade disputes between vastly different civilizations. Each solution was passed through the barrier to Vorn, who reviewed them with increasing amazement. Your approaches are unconventional, he admitted after reviewing their proposal for a waste recycling system that would serve multiple species simultaneously. But the mathematics work. The engineering is sound. How do you conceptualize these solutions so rapidly? Because humans have faced every imaginable challenge on our single world, Mira explained. We've had to cooperate across different cultures, languages, and viewpoints. We've had to innovate with limited resources. Every problem you've shown us, we've encountered some version of it on Earth. On the 20th day, Emperor Thexus returned, this time accompanied by a retinue of Imperial engineers and scientists. The humans had just completed their most ambitious project, a detailed proposal for reorganizing the Menagerie itself. You want to redesign my collection? Thexus asked, his tone unreadable. We want to reimagine it, Kale said boldly. Right now it's a zoo. Species isolated in artificial habitats, treated as curiosities. But it could be so much more. Lyra activated the holographic projection they'd prepared. Using the tablet technology, they displayed their vision, an intercultural exchange center where species could interact, learn from each other, and contribute to the Empire voluntarily rather than as captives. The Silurians' photosynthetic abilities could revolutionize agriculture on low-light worlds, she explained. The Mindari's telepathy could enable new forms of communication. The Ithrani's gaseous form could allow exploration of hostile environments. But none of them can share these gifts while they're confined to cages. You want me to release them? Thexus asked. We want you to partner with them, Zara corrected. Offer them citizenship, not captivity. Give them reasons to contribute willingly. The Empire would gain not just specimens to observe, but allies with unique capabilities. The Emperor was silent for a long moment, his crystalline body refracting the habitat's artificial sunlight into patterns of light on the ground. And what would you want in return for this proposal? He finally asked. Freedom to return home, Mira said. And a promise that when humanity reaches the stars on our own terms, the Valerian Empire will treat us as potential partners, not as collectibles. You have 3 days remaining in your allotted time, Thexus said. I will consider everything you've presented. But know this, humans, you've already achieved something remarkable. You've made me question assumptions I've held for my entire reign. He departed, leaving the 6 humans to wait in anxious hope. The decision. The final 3 days of the deadline crawled by with excruciating slowness. The humans had done everything they could, presented every argument, demonstrated every capability. Now they could only wait for Emperor Thexus to render his judgment. But the Empire, it seemed, was not waiting. Visitors to the human habitat had increased exponentially. The barriers were constantly crowded with aliens of every description, and the mood had shifted. Instead of casual curiosity, there was intense interest, even excitement. The humans overheard fragments of translated conversations, debates about their proposals, discussions of their capabilities, speculation about what the Emperor would decide. We've started something, Dax observed during their 28th evening. He was playing one of his improvised instruments, the music carrying through the habitat like a melancholy prayer. Whether Thexus agrees with us or not, we've planted seeds. Seeds don't matter if we're stuck here watching them grow from inside a cage, Rajesh countered. He'd been increasingly pessimistic as the deadline approached, his natural optimism eroded by the uncertainty of their situation. They matter, Zara insisted. Even if we never leave this habitat, even if we live out our lives as exhibits, we've shown these aliens that humans are more than primitives. That's worth something. Kale disagreed. It's worth everything. But I also think we're going to get more than moral victories. He pointed to activity beyond the barrier. Vorn had arrived with a contingent of workers who were installing something massive near their habitat. A platform of some kind, surrounded by projection equipment and seating that could accommodate hundreds of alien spectators. They're building a stage, Mira said, her pilot's eye for detail catching nuances the others missed. Whatever happens next, it's going to be public. On the 30th day they received their answer. The platform beyond the barrier came alive with activity. Thousands of alien beings gathered in the amphitheater-style seating, representing species from across the Valerian Empire. The humans recognized many from their weeks of observation. Silurians, Mindari, Ithrani, Kralix, and dozens of others whose names they'd never learned. Emperor Thexus appeared on the central platform, his crystalline form amplified to massive proportions by holographic projection so that every being present could see him clearly. Citizens of the Valerian Empire, his voice boomed across the assembly. For 300 cycles, I have maintained the Imperial Menagerie as a testament to the diversity of life in our galaxy. I have collected specimens from every corner of our domain, preserving them, studying them, sharing them with you all. The humans stood together near their barrier, hands unconsciously finding each other's, forming a united front as they faced their judgment. Recently, I acquired what I believed would be another simple addition: 6 beings from a primitive world called Earth. Humans, unremarkable in their physical attributes, limited in their technological development, confined to a single planet in an unremarkable star system. Kale felt Myra's hand tighten around his. But these humans have taught me something I had forgotten in my centuries of rule, Thexus continued. They have reminded me that intelligence cannot be measured solely by technological advancement or physical capability. They have demonstrated that adaptability, creativity, and cooperation are forces as powerful as any weapon or defense mechanism. The Emperor gestured, and holographic displays materialized around him, showing the humans' various projects and proposals, their infrastructure improvements, their problem-solving demonstrations, their reimagined vision for the Menagerie. These 6 humans, given only 30 days and limited resources, have proposed solutions to challenges that have vexed our greatest minds for years. They have done so not through superior technology or innate abilities, but through a way of thinking that is fundamentally different from our own. A murmur rippled through the assembled aliens, a sound that translated across hundreds of species as surprise and intrigue. Therefore, Thexus declared, I am implementing immediate changes to the Imperial Menagerie and announcing a new designation for the humans. This was it. The moment that would define everything. The Menagerie will be transformed into the Imperial Cultural Exchange Center, as the humans proposed. All species currently held as specimens will be offered citizenship in the Valerian Empire, with full rights and freedoms, should they choose to accept. Those who wish to return to their homeworlds will be provided transportation and resources to do so. Shock waves of reaction, sounds, colors, telepathic bursts, exploded through the crowd. Beside the human habitat, the barriers containing other species flickered and began to dissolve. As for the humans, Thexus continued, and 6 hearts simultaneously stopped beating, they will be granted immediate release and offered a choice. The barrier around the human habitat vanished. For the first time in 30 days, nothing stood between the humans and the rest of the universe. You may return to Earth with our apologies and our assurance that when your species reaches the stars, the Valerian Empire will welcome you as equals, Thexus said. Or you may remain here as the first human ambassadors to the Empire, helping us implement the changes you've proposed and serving as liaisons between our civilizations. Additionally, the Emperor added, and something in his tone suggested amusement, I am issuing an imperial decree protecting Earth and its solar system from any Valerian expansion or collection activities. Your world will develop at its own pace, free from our interference, until humanity chooses to venture outward. Kale stepped forward first, walking through the space where the barrier had been. The other 5 followed, emerging from their cage into the wider world beyond. Aliens of every description watched them with what might have been respect, might have been curiosity, might have been hope. We need to discuss this, Mira said, looking at the others. This is too big a decision to make impulsively. Then discuss, Thexus said. You have proven you work well together. I trust you will reach the right decision. The 6 humans huddled together, surrounded by thousands of alien eyes but feeling for the first time in a month, like they had control over their own destiny. Home, Rajesh said softly. We could go home. But think about what we could accomplish here, Lyra countered. We've just begun to understand this technology, this civilization. We could learn so much. We could teach so much, Zara added. The Empire needs what we know, our perspectives, our experiences. And Earth needs us to be here, representing humanity, making sure nothing like this ever happens again. Dax shook his head. We didn't ask for this. We were kidnapped, caged, forced to perform. Why should we help them? Because we can, Kale said quietly. Because we've seen what the Empire was and what it could become. Because 6 humans just changed the fate of hundreds of species. Imagine what we could do with actual resources and authority. And because, Mira added, Earth needs time. Time to develop, time to prepare. If we stay here, we can ensure that when humanity does reach the stars, we're ready. We can learn their technology, their politics, their pitfalls. We can be the bridge between Earth and everything out here. They talked for hours while the assembled aliens waited with surprising patience. They argued, compromised, and ultimately voted, a very human way of making collective decisions. When they finally turned back to Emperor Thexus, Kale spoke for all of them. "We've decided to split up," he said, and whispers rippled through the crowd. "3 of us will return to Earth to prepare humanity for eventual contact and to reassure our people that we're alive and safe. 3 of us will remain here as ambassadors, implementing the changes to the Menagerie and representing human interests in the Empire." Thexus tilted his head. "An unconventional solution." "We're humans," Mira said with a slight smile. "Unconventional is what we do." The transformation. The decision about who would stay and who would go was surprisingly easy. Kale, Mira, and Dax volunteered to remain as ambassadors, while Lyra, Rajesh, and Zara prepared to return to Earth. Each choice reflected personal strengths and desires, but all 6 understood that their mission, whether on Earth or in the Valerian Empire, remained the same: to bridge the gap between humanity and the cosmos. The Empire provided the returning humans with a ship equipped with human-compatible life support and a minimal crew of Valerian guides. Before departure, the 6 gathered one final time in what had been their prison but now felt more like a birthplace of something new. "When you get home," Kale said to Lyra, "tell them everything. Don't sugarcoat what happened to us, but help them understand what we've started here." Lyra nodded. "And you 3, don't let them turn you into decorations. The Empire might have agreed to change, but change is hard. Hold them accountable." "We will," Mira promised. They embraced, 6 humans who'd been strangers a month ago, now bonded by an experience that would define the rest of their lives. Then Lyra, Rajesh, and Zara departed for their journey home, while Kale, Mira, and Dax turned to face the monumental task ahead of them. Transforming the Imperial Menagerie into a true cultural exchange center proved even more challenging than they'd anticipated. The concept itself was simple, but the execution required unraveling 300 years of imperial policy and cultural assumptions. Their first major obstacle came from Advisor Vorn, who summoned them to a planning session in what would become the center's administrative hub. "The Emperor has mandated that all species be offered citizenship," Vorn explained, his mandibles clicking with obvious stress. "But many have never known anything but captivity. How do you propose we transition them?" "Gradually," Mira said, pulling up the implementation plan they drafted. "We don't throw open all the barriers at once and hope for the best. We start with education, teaching them about the Empire, about citizenship rights, about options available to them. Some will want to return home," Dax added. "But others might not have homes to return to anymore. Their worlds might have changed in the years or generations since they were taken. We need to prepare support systems. And some," Kale noted, "might choose to stay and contribute. The key is making it a genuine choice, not a default because they don't know any alternatives." They spent weeks meeting with representatives from each captive species, learning their stories, understanding their needs. The Silurians, who reproduced through spore dispersal, had developed 3 generations in captivity. The youngest had never known their homeworld. The Mindari, telepathic beings who felt emotions as physical sensations, were traumatized by years of being observed like objects. The Ithrani, gaseous beings who communicated through chemical signals, had been isolated from others of their kind for so long they'd nearly forgotten their cultural heritage. Each species presented unique challenges, but the humans approached every problem with the same methodology: listen first, understand deeply, then propose solutions collaboratively. "You know what's interesting?" Dax said one evening as they reviewed progress reports. "We're doing essentially what humans have always done, trying to build community from diversity. Earth has thousands of cultures, hundreds of languages, completely different worldviews. We've spent millennia figuring out how to coexist. This is just bigger." "Much bigger," Mira agreed. "But the principles are the same. Respect, communication, shared purpose." Emperor Thexus observed their progress with what seemed like genuine fascination. He began holding regular meetings with the human ambassadors, often bringing complex problems for their input. "The Gordani system has requested military intervention in a border dispute," he explained during one such meeting. "Traditionally, the Empire would impose a solution through force. How would humans approach this?" Kale studied the territorial maps displayed holographically before them. "What's the actual source of the dispute? Resources? Historical grievances? Cultural differences?" "All 3, Thexus admitted. "Then you don't need military intervention," Mira said. "You need mediation. Bring representatives together, help them find common ground. Military force might end the immediate conflict, but it doesn't resolve the underlying issues. And if they refuse to negotiate? Then you make negotiation more appealing than conflict," Dax suggested. "Economic incentives, cultural exchange programs, infrastructure development that benefits both sides. Give them something to gain from peace that's more valuable than what they'd win through war. These sessions became regular occurrences, with Thexus increasingly relying on the human perspective to inform imperial policy. What surprised the ambassadors was how receptive other species were to these changes. 3 months into the transformation, Vorn approached them with unexpected news. The Mindari delegation has requested a meeting. They have a proposal. The Mindari representatives arrived as shimmering clouds of consciousness, their emotions painting the air in colors that shifted with their moods, currently swirling purples and golds that the translation software interpreted as hopeful determination. "We have observed what you humans are building," their spokesperson communicated through telepathic projection. "We wish to contribute. Our kind can sense emotions, detect deceptions, understand intentions without words. These abilities could serve the Exchange Center's mission, helping species understand each other not just intellectually but emotionally." It was the first time any species had voluntarily offered to participate in the center's mission. "We would be honored," Mira said, and meant it. Other species followed. The Silurians offered to establish gardens throughout the center, living spaces that could be customized for different environmental needs while demonstrating the beauty of photosynthetic architecture. The Ithrani proposed creating atmospheric mixtures that would allow different species to mingle despite radically different breathing requirements. Even the Kralix, initially skeptical of the entire enterprise, began contributing their engineering expertise to infrastructure projects. 6 months after the Emperor's decree, the grand reopening of the Imperial Cultural Exchange Center was scheduled. The event would showcase what the facility had become, no longer a collection of isolated specimens, but a thriving community where species learned from each other, contributed according to their abilities and chose their own paths. The night before the opening, Kale stood on a balcony overlooking the transformed center. Where there had once been separate habitats with energy barriers, there were now interconnected spaces with voluntary participation zones. Species could retreat to private areas when needed, but they could also venture into shared spaces designed for interspecies interaction. Mira joined him, carrying 2 drinks made from a Gordon-y recipe that had become surprisingly popular across species lines. "Thinking about Earth?" she asked. "Always," Kale admitted. "Wondering if Lyra and the others made it home safely. Wondering what Earth's reaction will be when they learn the truth." "They'll probably panic initially," Mira said. "Learning that we're not alone, that there's an empire out here that was willing to cage humans like animals. But they'll also hear about what we've accomplished. About how 6 kidnapped humans helped change an empire's entire philosophy. Do you think we made the right choice? Staying here instead of going home?" Mira considered the question seriously. "I think we made the necessary choice. Earth needs time and our being here buys them that time. And honestly..." She gestured to the center below them, where a Silurian was teaching a Ithrani about Earth music while a Mindari observed with emotional fascination. "I think we're exactly where we need to be." Dax emerged from the building behind them, his latest composition playing from a small speaker. It blended sounds from 7 different species' traditional music into something entirely new, a harmony that shouldn't work but somehow did. "Tomorrow's going to be chaos," he predicted cheerfully. "Thousands of visitors, hundreds of species, all in the same space for the first time. What could possibly go wrong?" "Everything," Kale said with a grin. "But we'll figure it out. That's what humans do." They stood together on the balcony, 3 humans light years from home, looking out over an impossible achievement. A bridge between worlds that had begun with 6 prisoners in a cage and now stretched across an empire. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. But tonight they could simply marvel at what they'd helped create. First Contact Protocol. While Kale, Mira, and Dax worked to transform the Menagerie, Lyra, Rajesh, and Zara embarked on a journey that would determine humanity's future among the stars. The Valerian ship provided for their return was a marvel of engineering, but the 3 humans paid little attention to the technology. Their minds were focused on a single question: how do you tell Earth that everything has changed? The journey took 6 weeks. The Valerian crew, a small team of diplomatic specialists led by a being named Curix who resembled an upright walking octopus with iridescent skin, used the time to educate the humans about interstellar protocols. The Valerian Empire has strict non-interference policies for pre-contact civilizations, Curix explained one evening as they gathered in the ship's observation deck. Through the massive viewport, stars streaked past in patterns that still made Lyra's scientific mind reel with questions. Technically, by abducting you, those policies were violated. The Emperor's decree protecting Earth is meant to rectify that error. But we're going back to tell them about you, Zara pointed out. Doesn't that violate the non-interference policy? It's complicated, Curix admitted, his skin shifting to thoughtful blues and greens. Normally, first contact is a carefully orchestrated event that occurs after a species develops faster than light travel. Earth is centuries away from that milestone. However, since contact has already occurred through your abduction, the damage is done. The question becomes how to manage the information responsibly. You're worried we'll cause panic, Lyra said. I'm worried your species will make decisions based on fear rather than understanding, Curix corrected. Fear of the Empire, fear of alien species, fear of the unknown. Fear is rarely a good foundation for interstellar relations. Rajesh 23:27 had been quiet through most of these sessions, but now he spoke up. On Earth we have a saying, you can't unring a bell. 6 humans were taken from their lives, held in captivity, and shown that we're not alone in the universe. That bell has been rung. The only question is whether we help Earth understand the sound or let them make up their own interpretation. Wisely said, Curix acknowledged. They spent the remaining weeks crafting their approach. The Valerian ship would enter Earth's solar system but remain at a distance, far enough to avoid detection by Earth's primitive sensors but close enough to retrieve the humans quickly if needed. Lyra, Rajesh, and Zara would return to Earth via a small shuttle, landing at a carefully selected site, the United Nations headquarters in New York City. We go public immediately, Lyra insisted during their final planning session. No quiet return, no government debriefings behind closed doors. Humanity deserves to know the truth, all of it, from the beginning. That's risky, Curix warned. Government and military organizations typically prefer to control information flow. Which is exactly why we're not going to them first, Zara countered. The moment we land on government property and tell officials what happened, they'll classify everything and control the narrative. Humanity won't hear the truth, they'll hear a managed version designed to maintain power structures. So we land in the most public, most internationally visible location possible, Rajesh concluded. We tell our story to everyone at once, and we make it clear that 3 more humans are out there among the stars, working to ensure Earth's future. The day of their return, the 3 humans stood in the shuttle bay, preparing for re-entry. Curix approached them one final time. The Emperor asked me to give you this, he said, extending a small crystalline device. It's a quantum communicator. Your colleagues at the Cultural Exchange Center have the paired device. It will allow you to maintain contact across the light years. Lyra accepted it carefully, feeling the weight of what it represented. A thread connecting Earth to the Empire, a lifeline that could be either salvation or danger depending on how it was used. Tell Earth, Curix said, his skin cycling through solemn purples, that the Valerian Empire regrets its actions. Tell them that the Empire is changing. And tell them that when humanity is ready to reach for the stars, we will be here, not as collectors or conquerors but as neighbors. The shuttle entered Earth's atmosphere at dawn, descending toward New York City with transponder signals blazing on every frequency humans used for communication. They wanted to be seen, wanted to be tracked, wanted to arrive with absolutely no ambiguity about their presence. They landed in the plaza outside the United Nations building, the shuttle's anti-gravity systems lowering them gently onto the concrete as security forces scrambled and news helicopters converged overhead. When the shuttle doors opened, Lyra stepped out first, followed by Rajesh and Zara. They wore simple clothes provided by the Valorians, clearly alien in design but comfortable and practical. Behind them, the shuttle gleamed with obvious extraterrestrial origin. For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. Then chaos erupted. Security forces surrounded them, weapons drawn. News cameras broadcast their arrival to billions. Within minutes, the plaza was a madhouse of military personnel, journalists, diplomats, and curious onlookers who had somehow breached the security perimeter. Lyra raised her hands, not in surrender but in greeting. My name is Dr. Lyra Chen, she called out, her voice carrying clearly in the morning air. 37 weeks ago, I was abducted from Earth along with 5 other humans by an alien empire called the Valorians. We were held captive, studied, displayed as specimens in what was essentially an extraterrestrial zoo. The words landed like bombs. People gasped, weapons wavered, cameras zoomed in. But that's not the end of our story, Rajesh continued, taking up the narrative. The 6 of us worked together to show our captors that humanity deserves respect, dignity, and freedom. We succeeded. The Emperor of the Valerian Empire has decreed that Earth and its solar system are protected from interference. We have been given time to develop, time to prepare, time to decide for ourselves when and how we'll join the larger galactic community. 3 of us have returned to tell you this, Zara added. 3 remain in the Empire as ambassadors, ensuring that when humanity does reach the stars, we'll be ready. We've brought proof of everything we're telling you, and we're prepared to answer any questions from any nation, any organization, any person who wants to understand the truth. A woman in an expensive suit, probably a UN official, pushed through the security cordon. You need to come with us, she said, trying to project authority despite obvious shock. This is a matter of international security. This is a matter of human survival, Lyra interrupted. And it's not going to be decided behind closed doors by politicians and generals. This affects every human on Earth. They all deserve to know. She turned to face the cameras directly. The universe is vast and full of life. Some of that life is benevolent, some is indifferent, and yes, some could be dangerous. But fear and ignorance won't protect us. Knowledge, preparation, and unity will. We're here to provide that knowledge. What humanity does with it will determine our place among the stars. The shuttle behind them began to rise, its mission complete. As it ascended back toward the Valerian ship waiting beyond Earth's orbit, the 3 returned humans stood their ground in the plaza, refusing to be moved, insisting on their right to tell their story publicly. And the world, ready or not, listened. Over the following weeks, Lyra, Rajesh, and Zara became the faces of humanity's first contact with extraterrestrial intelligence. They appeared before the United Nations, gave press conferences, submitted to examinations that confirmed their story's authenticity, and used the quantum communicator to establish live communication with Kale, Mira, and Dax at the Cultural Exchange Center. The reaction was everything Curix had feared and more. Panic, skepticism, wild conspiracy theories, religious upheaval, and political chaos. But there was also wonder, excitement, and determination. Humanity learned it wasn't alone, and while that knowledge was terrifying, it was also transformative. Space agencies around the world received unprecedented funding. International cooperation on space exploration reached levels previously thought impossible. Universities established xenobiology, xenopsychology, and interstellar relations programs. Children who had once dreamed of being astronauts now dreamed of being ambassadors to alien worlds. And through it all, 6 humans, 3 on Earth and 3 among the stars, worked tirelessly to prepare humanity for its eventual place in the cosmos. A galaxy united. 2 years after the humans' initial abduction, the Valerian Empire convened its first galactic assembly, a meeting of representatives from every species in the Empire, including those who had once been specimens in the Menagerie. The location was the Cultural Exchange Center itself, transformed from its origins as a prison into something unprecedented, a true meeting place for diverse intelligences. Kale stood in the central amphitheater, now reconfigured to accommodate hundreds of different physiologies simultaneously. Silurians photosynthesized in specially illuminated zones. Ithrani floated in containment fields that maintained their gaseous integrity while allowing communication. Mindari broadcast their emotional responses as visible light, creating a shimmering aurora of collective feeling. The Kralix perched on elevated platforms. Species whose names Kale still struggled to pronounce occupied niches designed specifically for their needs. And in a specially designated area, 6 humans represented Earth. Kale, Mira, and Dax who had remained in the Empire, plus Lyra, Rajesh, and Zara who had returned just for this historic gathering. Emperor Thexus called the assembly to order, his crystalline form amplified holographically so all could see him. 2 years ago, I stood before you and announced radical changes to the Imperial Menagerie. Many doubted such changes could succeed. Today we gather to celebrate not just success, but transformation. He gestured to the assembled species. What began as a collection has become a community. What was a museum of the conquered has become a symposium of equals. This evolution was inspired by 6 humans who refused to accept captivity as their destiny. Kale felt the weight of thousands of alien eyes, and other sensory organs, focusing on the human delegation. The humans taught us that intelligence manifests in infinite forms, Thexus continued. They showed us that technological advancement is not the only measure of a civilization's worth. They demonstrated that adaptability, creativity, and cooperation can be as valuable as any innate ability. A Mindari representative's thoughts painted the air with golden agreement, and the sentiment rippled through other species in various forms. Today we formalize what we have been building, Thexus announced. The Valerian Empire will restructure itself as the Valerian Commonwealth, a voluntary alliance of independent species who choose cooperation over conquest. Each member species will maintain sovereignty over their homeworlds while contributing to and benefiting from our collective knowledge, resources, and security. The amphitheater erupted in sounds, colors, and telepathic bursts that the translation systems interpreted as overwhelming approval. "And we extend an invitation," Thexus said, his gaze settling on the humans, "to Earth. When your species develops faster than light travel, when you have unified enough to speak with one voice, when you are ready to take your place among the stars, the Commonwealth will welcome you not as subjects, but as equals." Lyra rose to respond, speaking not just for the six of them but for all of humanity. "Emperor, no, Chancellor Thexus," she said, using his new title under the Commonwealth structure. 2 years ago, 6 humans were stolen from Earth. We were caged, studied, displayed. It was a violation of our freedom and dignity. The amphitheater went quiet, tension suddenly thick. "But from that violation came understanding," Lyra continued. "We learned that humanity is not alone. We learned that the universe is full of wonder and danger, cooperation and conflict. Most importantly, we learned that our differences, whether between species or within them, are not weaknesses to overcome but strengths to celebrate." She gestured to her fellow humans. "We 6 cannot accept your invitation on behalf of all humanity. That decision must be made by billions of voices, not 6. But we can promise this: we will work to prepare Earth for that day. We will teach our people what you've taught us, that intelligence comes in infinite forms, that cooperation transcends biology, and that the cosmos is vast enough for all of us. And when Earth is ready," Kale added, standing beside Lyra, "when we've overcome our divisions and learned to see ourselves as one species among many, when we've developed not just the technology to reach the stars but the wisdom to navigate them, we will come to you as friends." Thexus's crystalline form shimmered with what might have been emotion. "Then we shall wait with hope. In the meantime, this Commonwealth will benefit from your continued presence. Those of you who choose to remain as ambassadors will find yourselves quite busy." The formal proceedings continued for hours, with each species presenting proposals, concerns and visions for the Commonwealth's future. But during a recess, the 6 humans gathered privately in a garden designed by the Silurians, a space that somehow managed to feel both alien and welcoming. "So," Rajesh said, breaking the silence that had fallen over them, "we did it. We changed an empire." "We started the change," Mira corrected. "The real work is just beginning. The Commonwealth will face challenges we can't even imagine yet. But it'll face them as a community," Dax said, his musician's ear picking up the distant sounds of various species attempting to create collaborative music in one of the center's artistic spaces. "That's the point, isn't it? No single species has all the answers, but together we might get close." Zara looked up at the artificial sky above them, designed to show the star patterns visible from dozens of different homeworlds simultaneously. "What about Earth? We've prepared them as much as we could, but knowing we're not alone and actually joining a galactic community are very different things." "Earth will figure it out," Lyra said with confidence born from her months working with various governments and organizations. "Humanity has always been at our best when facing impossible challenges. This is just our biggest one yet. Some of us should probably return permanently," Kale said. "Help coordinate between Earth and the Commonwealth, smooth the eventual transition." "I'll go," Zara volunteered immediately. "My skills as an educator are needed more on Earth than here." "I'll join you," Rajesh added. "Someone needs to help Earth scientists and engineers understand what we've learned about alien technology and biology." That left 4, Kale, Mira, Dax and Lyra, looking at each other with the question unspoken but understood. Who would stay and who would go? "I'm staying," Lyra said firmly. "There's too much to learn here, too much science I can't walk away from. And someone with my background needs to be here representing Earth's interests as the Commonwealth develops." "I'm staying too," Dax decided. "The cultural exchange work we're doing, the art and music that's emerging from species collaboration, it's unlike anything Earth has ever seen. I need to document it, participate in it and eventually bring it home." Kale and Mira exchanged glances, a wordless communication born from 2 years of working together in impossible circumstances. "We'll split time," Mira proposed. 6 months on Earth helping coordinate preparations, 6 months here maintaining our ambassadorial presence. We can use the quantum communicators to stay connected with both groups. It wasn't perfect, but perfect solutions rarely existed when dealing with light years and historic changes. They were 6 humans trying to bridge 2 worlds, literally and figuratively. Compromises were inevitable. That evening, the 6 attended a celebration at the Cultural Exchange Center. Species who had once been prisoners mingled freely with their former captors, united now by choice rather than divided by force. Music blended across biological barriers. Food from dozens of worlds was shared and enjoyed. Knowledge flowed freely in conversations between beings who had nothing in common except intelligence and curiosity. At one point, Emperor, Chancellor, Thexus approached the human delegation personally, without his usual retinue of advisors and guards. "I owe you an apology," he said quietly, his translated voice sincere. "Not just for the abduction, though that was unforgivable, but for my arrogance. For centuries, I believed that collecting and preserving species was enough, that I was honoring diversity by cataloging it. You showed me that true honor comes from freedom, from choice, from partnership." "You learned," Kale replied simply. "That's all any of us can do, learn and do better." "Will you tell me something honestly?" Thexus asked. "If given the choice to undo everything, to have never been taken from Earth, to have never experienced captivity, would you?" The 6 humans looked at each other, and this time no words were needed. They discussed this question countless times during quiet moments over the past 2 years. "No," Lyra answered for all of them. "What happened to us was wrong. The violation, the fear, the uncertainty, all of it was wrong. But what came from it?" She gestured to the celebration around them. "This commonwealth, this change, this chance for humanity to prepare for the stars, we wouldn't undo it. Though we'd really prefer the next humans who join the commonwealth do so voluntarily," Mira added with a slight smile. Thexus's crystalline form refracted the celebration's lights into rainbow patterns. "That is my solemn promise. Earth will make contact on Earth's terms when Earth is ready. And when that day comes, the Commonwealth will receive them with the respect and dignity they deserve." As the celebration continued into the night, or whatever passed for night in a space station that hosted species from worlds with vastly different day-night cycles, the 6 humans found themselves drawn to a viewing platform. Through the transparent aluminum, they could see stars in their true unfiltered glory, thousands of points of light representing billions of worlds, some barren, some teeming with life, all part of a cosmos vaster than any one species could fully comprehend. "Do you think Earth is ready for this?" Zara asked softly. "No," Kale said. "But we weren't ready either, and we managed. Humanity has faced impossible challenges before. Ice ages, plagues, world wars, climate change. We adapt. We endure. We grow. And now we have time," Rajesh added. "Time to prepare, time to unite, time to become the species we need to be before we step out into all of this. The question," Dax mused, "is what kind of species will we become? Will we bring Earth's divisions to the stars, or will we finally learn to see ourselves as one people?" "Both, probably," Lyra said with a scientist's pragmatism. "Humans are complicated. We're capable of incredible compassion and terrible cruelty, brilliant cooperation and stupid conflict. We're not going to suddenly become perfect just because we know aliens exist. But maybe," Mira suggested, "knowing we're one species among many will help us remember that our differences, race, nationality, religion, culture, are tiny compared to the diversity out here. Maybe it'll give us perspective. Or maybe," Kale said, "we'll just export our problems to a larger stage." They stood in silence for a moment, contemplating the uncertain future stretching before humanity and the Commonwealth alike. "You know what I think?" Zara said finally. "I think it doesn't matter if we're ready. The universe doesn't wait for anyone to be ready. It just is. And we're part of it now, whether we feel prepared or not." "Then we'd better make the most of it," Rajesh concluded. As the celebration continued behind them and the stars blazed indifferently before them, 6 humans who had started as victims became visionaries, prisoners became pioneers, and what began as humanity's worst nightmare became its greatest opportunity. Somewhere on Earth, billions of people looked up at those same stars with new understanding, knowing they weren't alone, fearing what that meant, hoping for what it could become. And throughout the Valerian Commonwealth, hundreds of species who had once been specimens in an empire's collection now worked together as equals, united by a simple truth that 6 humans had taught them. Intelligence, in all its infinite forms, deserves not to be collected but to be celebrated. Not to be confined but to be free. Not to be studied from a distance, but to be embraced as part of the vast, complex, beautiful tapestry of life that fills the cosmos. The galaxy was vast. The challenges were immense. The future was uncertain. But for the first time in history, humans and aliens faced it together, as partners in the greatest adventure existence had to offer.